Hi, welcome to your video on multiplying and dividing real numbers. Your I can statement is I can multiply and divide real numbers to solve real world problems. Let's get started. First question, how do I multiply real numbers? I have 4 examples for you. The first being -5 times -5. In this problem, we have a negative multiplied by a negative. And when we have that happen, we're going to end up having a positive for an answer. So in this case, it's going to be 25. This one involves fractions, but the same rules apply. So this time I have a positive times a negative. And that's going to end up giving me a negative for an answer. So I can keep that in mind as I'm solving. Fractions I multiply across. 1 times -1 is -1. 2 times 2 is 4. So -1/4 is my answer to that one. This one we have a negative times a positive. And that will give me a negative answer also. And so when I multiply this one, I end up with an answer of -3.6. And last but not least, you can have more than 2 numbers involved. And when you have this, you can go straight across left to right, or you can group them. It doesn't really matter. You should end up with the same answer. We have a negative times a positive times a negative. And you might remember that I said 2 negatives makes a positive. Negative times a negative. So you could see it that way and know that your answer is going to be positive. Or you could just go down the list. A negative times a positive is a negative. And then a negative times a negative makes a positive. Either way, you'll get the same answer. Just so that you're aware of that. There are some general rules that you can take from this. That being, if they have the same sign. In other words, if it's negative times a negative or positive times a positive, your answer is going to be positive. And if you have a different sign, so those examples would be a negative times a positive or a positive times a negative, your answer is going to be negative. How do you multiply it with powers and exponents? This can be a little bit tricky. I'm going to give you some examples here, and you should be able to pick up on a pattern that's happening. So here we go. The first one, -2 to the 0 power. Here's the special case. Anytime you have an exponent that is 0, okay, your answer will always 100% of the time be 1. Doesn't matter what number the base is, which is this number. If the exponent is 0, your answer is 1. Next one, -2 to the first power. Exponent means that we have -2 written 1 time. So our answer is just that, -2. The next one, we have -2 to the second power. That means -2 times -2, which means we have a negative times a negative, which is a positive. Answer is going to be 4. And last but not least, -2 to the third power means -2 times -2 times -2. Make sure you're writing all of this out. And negative times a negative is a positive, so this would be positive 4. And then 4 times -2 would give you an answer of -8. Okay, there is an important note, especially with negative exponents. They can be very, very tricky. So I've given you 3 examples here involving negatives and exponents just to kind of show you the importance and how to handle all 3 situations. Whenever you have exponents, you have to multiply the base. So identifying the base is really important, especially with negatives. The base of your number is always directly to the left of your exponent. So in this first example here, I have my exponent of 2 and my base is the 3. It is not -3 because that would be 2 spots after. We only go 1 spot to the left. So my base is 3 here. So I'm going to take 3 squared. 3 times 3, which would be 9. And then I have to drop in that negative sign, that opposite sign. So this actually ends up being an answer of -9. Second one, okay, here's our exponent 2. Directly 1 to the left is actually going to be -3 because of the parentheses. So here's my base. I'm going to take -3 and then times it by -3. A negative times a negative is a positive, so this one actually is going to be +9. And then the last one, identifying your base is just 1 to the left, so in this case it's +3. So 3 times 3 is 9, and then we have to drop in that negative or opposite sign, so it's actually going to be an answer of -9. So they are very different. They can cause you difficulty, so be very careful. How do you divide real numbers? Dividing real numbers is exactly like multiplying. You have those 2 rules, okay? If it's the same, so a positive and a positive or negative, they're going to be positive answers. If they're different signs, so a positive and negative, you're going to have a negative for an answer. So here we go with a couple examples. 48 divided by -8, we have a positive and a negative, so my answer is going to be negative. 48 divided by 8 is 6, so my answer is -6. Second one, -32 divided by -2, negative divided by a negative, those are same signs, so my answer is going to be +16. Same holds true with fractions, okay, except for we have to do our keep, switch, flip. So I keep, switch to multiplication, and flip. Then you're going to want to cross simplify, and 2, okay, and then multiply across, but keep and pay attention to the sign. So I have a negative times a positive, so my answer is going to be negative, and I like to keep it in the numerator just so I don't lose it, so -1/2. Alright, it is your turn. 3 problems here. Make sure you're copying down the problem as well as your answer. Show your work if you need to, and then turn on the video when you're done. Alright, here are your answers. Make sure you're marking them right or wrong, and then if you have questions, bring those to class. Alright, this is the end of your video. For a Jolly Rancher, email me the name of the song with the artist.